Hello, everyone. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to commemorate World Day Against Child Labor. A special thank you to Director Kevin Cassidy of the ILO office here in Washington, and to all of the organizers of this event, including my colleagues at iLab in the Department of Labor. This is an important year in the fight against child labor. As you know, 2021 is the International Year of Elimination of Child Labor, and the COVID-19 pandemic has increased poverty in families around the world. As we learned this morning, an estimated 160 million children are subjected to child labor. 79 million of these children experience the worst forms of abuse, including forced labor and commercial sexual exploitation. And an additional 8.9 million children could end up in child labor by the end of 2022 due to the rise in poverty driven by the pandemic. Those numbers represent untold trauma, suffering, and lost opportunities. What they also mean is that for the first time in 20 years, global progress against child labor has stalled. This data is a wake-up call. We cannot let our guard down in this fight. We must redouble our commitment to protect children worldwide. We achieve progress thanks to the decades of collective international action. But that progress could be reversed if we are not vigilant. We must be willing to make the investments and the changes needed to put children and workers at the center of our efforts. So how do we tackle this massive problem for the global community as nations continue to fight their way out of a pandemic? The Department of Labor has encouraged our partners to integrate their efforts to combat child labor into the COVID-19 responses. This means including information about child labor risks in at-home learning resources, food assistance, and other supports. Moving forward, the Biden-Harris administration is committed to building back better. So we're using what we've learned during the time to do better. The pandemic has underscored the need for greater protections for children and workers in times of crisis. The President has directed the United States government to prioritize human rights. We're addressing all forms of discrimination, including gender inequality, systemic racism, and of course child labor, forced labor, and human trafficking. We have our work cut out for us, there's no doubt. At the height of the pandemic, school closure affected more than 1 billion students in over 130 countries. Parents lost jobs and incomes. Families faced food and housing insecurities. Loved ones were sick and many died. All of that increased the likelihood that children would end up working to help their families survive. So after 20 years of progress reducing global child labor, we are now at a standstill. We must be resolute. We cannot afford to let a generation of children lose out on school. We cannot allow vulnerable families and workers to go unprotected or unsupported. And that's why this year's World Day Against Child Labor focuses on the importance of education and the effects of the pandemic. We are fortunate today to have several speakers with us who will share some of the efforts being made around the world to combat child labor in the time of COVID. We're also fortunate to be able to celebrate outstanding examples of dedication and impact in this work. Each year, the Department of Labor gives the Iqbal Masih Awards for the elimination of child labor. The award honors an individual or organization whose contributions to this fight have been extraordinary. It's my great honor to have helped choose two incredible deserving recipients in one of my first actions as Secretary of Labor. And I'm inspired by the passion and commitment demonstrated by all of the nominees. It's my pleasure to announce that the Department of Labor is recognizing joint winners this year, Norma Flores Lopez and the International Labor Organization. Norma has been a leader in the fight to end child labor for nearly 20 years. Her journey is an inspiration. She went from working on a farm as a child to becoming one of the most influential advocates in the world for farm workers' rights. As the head of the Child Labor Coalition Domestic Issue Committee, she fought for better protections for child farm workers and other vulnerable children, and she has rallied more than a dozen organizations to join the fight. Norma is a role model for what individual leaders can do, and she is a reminder of the need in every country to look inward at the challenges that we need to face. Our second award winner speaks to the equally important need to think globally when confronting the issue. Since its formation over a century ago, the International Labor Organization has been a leader in the fight to end child labor. The ILO has called on all nations to act with urgency to eliminate the worst and most harmful forms of exploitation. It has brought international attention to the issue and inspired action all around the world. It has played a central role in the development of a worldwide movement against child labor, establishing international standards, collecting critical data, and conducting in-depth research. The ILO has worked on the ground in over 90 countries to raise awareness and build capacity, and bring hope to hundreds of thousands of vulnerable children and their families. Our selection of these two recipients recognize the importance of eradicating child labor both at home and abroad. As we commemorate the International Year for the Elimination of Child Labor and respond to the impacts of COVID-19, we should all remember to think locally and act globally. Together, we can and will build back better and achieve a brighter future for the world's children in 2021 and beyond. Thank you.